with a 22mm socket. Take off all these little caps that hold this big cap that hides the lug nuts. Now, also with a 22mm socket, remove all 8 of your lug nuts. And remove the wheel. Now from behind the wheel, you'll see these two 21mm bolts that hold your caliper bracket onto the knuckle. I'm going to take the whole assembly out. Leave this in a couple threads so it can hold the caliper while we take the top one out. Take the whole assembly off of the rotor, and I like to place it on top of the knuckle so it doesn't pull on the brake hose. Now you can pull the rotor off. Now we have to remove the ABS wire off of this bracket, the retainer. You can just pull on it with some pliers. That should release it. On the control arm, there's another location here where it's supposed to be held down. Mine is broken, so we'll figure that out when the time comes, but for you, you can just pop it right off. And then if you follow the wire, you'll see it goes behind the coil spring tower there, and it actually swoops around to the front. And that little blue connector there is the connector for the ABS wire. So just pull on this and disconnect it. At this point, you can grab it, pull it through. Okay, there it is. Now with a 15mm socket, remove all 4 bolts that hold the wheel bearing down onto the knuckle. I'm going to get the other 2 from the front side. Go ahead and remove all of them. At this point, all that's left to do is to give this a couple whacks with a hammer and take this all off. All right, it's breaking free finally. Watch your feet. Save the backing plate, pull that straight off, and then we'll clean up in here. Now with the inside cleaned up, I also cleaned out the outside, just the same as I did the inside. It's important to have everything clean so the wheel bearing can seat itself nice and flush. And now we're going to coat it with anti-seize, but before we do that, I want to reinstall this rubber seal that I had to take out to clean it. If yours isn't very rusted, then you don't have to take this out, but I had to sand mine down and I didn't want to sand down on the rubber seal. This one isn't in the best of condition, but it's better than not having one in here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. And now take a little bit of anti-seize and just coat this whole surface to hopefully prevent future rust from building up. And if this wheel bearing ever does have to get replaced, it'll come out hopefully a little bit easier. To remove the backing plate off of this, we'll first remove the ABS. Well, that's broken. We'll remove the ABS wire. I was just going to set it aside, but this is fine. And now I sprayed it with some rust penetrant because this is kind of rusty. That way it'll slide right off. And you do want to clean up a little bit here if you have any rot buildup, because this goes in between the bearing and the knuckle. And if this is flaky and raised up with chunks of rust, well, there was no point in cleaning up the knuckle. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to give it a quick wire brush and then we'll be all set. Get the new wheel bearing and slide the ABS sensor wire in behind this little tab here, and go ahead and place the backing plate onto the wheel bearing and line it up. I applied a little bit of anti-seize to it. That way hopefully it doesn't seize up. All right, let's put this on the knuckle. Slide this in. Should want to slide in easily. I cleaned up all the bolts and I put a little bit of red thread locker on all of them. I'll try and start one at a time here. All right, so this one's started. Let's see if this one will start. Yep, let's go over to this one. like we'll have to wait a little bit to start that one. The knuckle has to turn, but let's try to get this one threaded in. Okay, let's turn the knuckle a little bit to put that one in. So, the wheel bearing is seated all the way. Let's go ahead and snug all these up. All right, let's torque it. 133 foot-pounds for all 4 of these bolts. I'm going to torque them in a cross pattern, that way I make sure the wheel bearing is seated 100%. I'm just going to double check them all to make sure. All right, they're good. And back again with the anti-seize. Let's coat this hub so it doesn't rust. Make sure you get in this ridge right here. That's where the rotor most likely is going to freeze up. Okay, looks good. Let's get the rotor on. Now I'm using a new rotor, but if you're using your old rotor and the inside part right here is rusted, you just want to clean it up a little bit, sand it down, whatever you have to do to get it to sit nice and flush. Put the rotor on. And at this point, you want to check if the backing plate scrapes, and it does, so let's fix it. Looks like for me it's scraping at the bottom here. A lot of times this gets bent easily. There we go. If you don't fix it, it'll make a horrible noise going down the road. All right, now take the caliper, slide it on, line up the bolt holes and start in the mounting bolts of the caliper. Snug them and then torque them to 221 foot-pounds. All right, take your new ABS sensor and re-secure it in its mounting points. This one here, I just punched out the broken plastic piece because the hole goes all the way through. So you can just come from underneath and punch it out, or you can drill it out, whatever you want. It's just plastic. And now swoop it behind the strut tower here, and this will be pretty hard to see for both me and you, but slide this. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to go here. All right, let's connect these together. Make sure you hear it click. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all of your lug nuts, bottom them out, and then torque them to 140 foot-pounds. Don't forget about the cover. That covers the lug nuts. Do this by hand because these plastic nuts here, or covers, I guess, that screw on, you can break them very easily if you use an air gun on them. So just make them snug, just enough to hold on this cap. That's all you need to do. Okay, take it for a road test.